Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to a new episode of the POLIS Mobilizing Mobility webinar series. First of all, we hope that you are all good and safe. My name is Giacomo Lozzi and I'm Urban Freight Coordinator at POLIS. And today we will talk about digital twins and how they can support cities for urban planning. The webinar is organized in the framework of the European funded project LEAD, which applies the concept of digital twins to urban logistics. So at POLIS, we want to help cities and regions to navigate these difficult times. And with the POLIS Mobilizing Mobility webinar series, we want to provide a platform for urban transport stakeholders to learn, discuss, and share valuable experience and knowledge on how to integrate new transport solutions in local mobility policies. So moving from European research to actual deployment and concrete implementation on the ground. We have 2 appointments per week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2. And so for this week, we have still another webinar that it's about managing uncertainty when dealing with the future of mobility. You find more information on our website. And then we have 2 more webinars for this month. You find, as I said, all information on polisnetwork.eu. So today it will be myself and my colleague Claudia Ribeiro who put together this session with me, put this session together with me, and we will bring you through this subject. Just a few practicalities before we start the webinar itself. This meeting is being recorded, and the recording will be sent to you. And so please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking, and also use the question and answer box to write your questions so that we can pick them up later in the second part and ask them to the panelists. So as I said, this project is organized in the framework of the LEAD project. We have the coordinator of the project that will give us more information about it later. And I just briefly introduced the topic of today. So the webinar is entitled "Like Two Peas in a Pod, Digital Twins for Urban Planning." So digital twins is a digital replica of a complex real-world urban environment and represents different processes, actors, and their interactions. And the virtual version of the model reproduces its physical counterpart in a realistic, complex, and dynamic way. And this linkage is established through generation of real-time data using sensors, GIS, and other sources such as dynamic databases. So in addition to setting the context and bringing clarity to this complex concept, this webinar will also showcase 2 initiatives that are evidence of this potential for more sustainable urban planning, and in particular for mobility and logistics. For this purpose, we are glad to welcome a distinguished panel of experts that I would like to thank for joining us in this webinar. First of all, we will hear from Andrea Almos. Andrea works as a policy officer in the Smart Mobility and Living Unit of DG Connected, the European Commission. And her current activities focus on helping cities and communities better harness data and artificial intelligence in order to meet their environmental and climate objectives. And this includes capacity building of cities to create their urban digital twins for better informed decisions. Andrea will introduce the concept of digital twins and also briefly touch upon the different initiatives in this field, together with the wider European Commission strategy on this topic. Then we have Jonas Onland, who will step in to present the Living in .eu Smart City Community, where they are launching a website for community building on urban digital twins. And Jonas works for the Association of Dutch Municipalities to help municipalities to become future-proof through innovation. And in collaboration with the European Commission and European networks, he's supporting the movement Living in.eu on behalf of his association. Then we will deep dive into more specific initiatives that are evidence of the digital twins applications to concrete cases and showcase their potential for more sustainable urban mobility planning. And first, Irene Blazkets will present the LEAD project. And Irene is the coordinator of LEAD, and she has an extensive experience in international cooperation projects. And she currently works at the EMT, which is the Public Transport Authority of the City of Madrid. And she's in the Institutional Relations and Corporate Social Responsibility Directorate. And then last but not least, Roland van der Heijden will give us some insights on how digital twins are currently used in Rotterdam, where they created a 3D digital twin of the city. And Roland, from origin, is a city planner, and he has a fascination for the phenomena city, as well from historic and future perspective. Next to this, Roland has also interest in data and digital, and so he put the two things together, and he is now the program manager of the 5-year program Digital City Rotterdam. So thanks for your attention, and now without further delay, I'm happy to give the floor to Andrea, who will introduce the topic of digital twins. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you really for inviting us. I'm here from, as Giacomo already said, from DG Connect, where we're responsible for actually creating the underlying digital infrastructure, if I may, so for many, many different smart cities projects. You're focusing on mobility, but we also work on projects that will eventually help in smart energy or smart waste management and so on. But what brings our added value is to try and help cities implement the necessary underlying infrastructure and applications that will help them implement those kind of services that are most relevant for their cities. So let me just walk you through a few slides, and I'm really happy that this event is taking place just a few days, I think about not even a month after a first webinar where we launched our concept about urban digital twins during the European Week of Regions and Cities, where we kind of walk through the audience on what the Commission considers and why the Commission considers this as a powerful means for cities and communities to really better understand as Giacomo said earlier, this complex ecosystem that they're trying to manage, let it be for mobility or urban planning or for perhaps other areas that the city needs to manage. So as mentioned earlier, this digital twin is the virtual replica or digital replica of an object, but also a whole ecosystem of around that object. Could be the processes, could be the services and systems around it, with a link to this physical asset and using the data as an interlinkage between the two. Now, the notion comes more from the manufacturing industry, or as we heard at another webinar from NASA, but these digital twins have now been used in many other areas and sectors as well. What they really help with, especially if real-time data is used, is to help monitor and understand the current situation, also understand the past, but eventually also predict and maybe prevent some future challenges. Interestingly, we see from recent studies that something like 75% of organizations that use Internet of Things and sensors, they already use digital twins, or at least plan to within a year. And then also many urban digital twins are expected to grow and actually from a handful in 2019 to more than 500 by 2025. And we actually see quite a lot of them popping up around Europe as well. I'll come to that in a moment. As mentioned, for a smart city context, there could be many different application areas. We're going to talk about urban planning, urban mobility, but it could also be useful for addressing shocks, crisis management, or acute weather events. But eventually also helping citizen participation, but could be, we've also seen projects in using it for the built environment and many more. Oops, pardon. For the city context, an urban digital twin would then mean the virtual replica of the city and its assets, its processes, its services, and connected with this especially real-time data that will give its power, when of course a number of other technologies can help, such as, for example, artificial intelligence, data analytics, data visualization, and simulation models. It also helps for cities to use it as a risk-free environment for testing, for example, better understanding different policy scenarios before a decision is made. It essentially brings together all domains, or could bring together all domains or all smart city projects within a city to see how the different decisions made in different domains actually could impact or would impact another domain. So indeed, it could help in just a matter of operational efficiencies, but also eventually cost savings, or breaking the silos between the city domains, coordinating, for example, emergency services, better urban infrastructure management, or better urban planning. I've used two very nice quotes from a project that you'll probably hear about also later, the Duet project. I mean, talking about urban digital twins as something like providing policy-ready data as a service, but also a playground for city planners from the Open and Agile Smart Cities that are also part of this other project, Duet project consortium. As mentioned, we understand there's quite a lot of urban digital twins already around the world, especially, of course, what we see is that in, let's say, very modern types of cities, we've seen perhaps a bit easier approach to implement an urban digital twin. We also know of a city in India that was actually first built in its virtual reality, and then a real city was built on top of that. What we also see is a newly launched initiative, or at least a newly launched website for the Australia and New Zealand region, urban digital twins, and the discussions about how to implement it across the whole region. But there's certainly a number of those digital twins, and looking at different policy objectives, such as energy efficiency or just better urban planning. And also in Europe, I'm pleased to be here with the LEAD project. But as I mentioned, there's also, for example, projects like Duet or the Sphere project for the built environment. But certainly you'll hear about cities today like Rotterdam. But the Duet project would also talk about Antwerp. We know of Newcastle, Helsinki, and many more. You can see the list there. And we'll be happy to learn about more and new examples, so we can start sharing experience among ourselves. And what we see is that, of course, it's quite a complex endeavor, especially if we want to use it, if we want cities to start using it for their complex decision making. Certainly, it takes a lot of orchestration and governance about how we manage the different aspects within a city management. How do different players in the ecosystem see a value creation, for example, in running this digital twin? And very importantly, how do we manage data? Where does data come from? How do we ensure real-time and useful data, good quality data? And how is this data shared and accessed? And how does it ensure that this digital twin can indeed look at current and eventually past, but also future scenarios? Certainly cybersecurity and privacy are important issues, and so is interoperability and skills. What is also interesting, and something that we can discuss, is perhaps digital twins, or at least in their current stage, they're perhaps less effective for modeling complex societal challenges, where we really need to understand why certain things happen rather than just actually observe what actually happens. But on the positive side, and this is where the role of the Commission may come in, we do see a number of existing enablers that could help also other cities to perhaps quicker implement their own digital twins than those who have originally started from starting from scratch. Obviously, the experience exchange is a very important element of it, but there's also a number of elements or tools or toolboxes that could be helpful, such as certainly the minimum interoperability mechanisms. We can talk about that later if you wish, and the Living in EU movement, you'll hear about that, but also the so-called common European data spaces. For mobility, you'll be aware that a mobility data space will be established. We will also work on a cross-domain local data ecosystem, whereby we'll be looking at how to share data in a smart city context between different domains. And there's, of course, a number of other initiatives, such as work that is currently being done with Commission services on creating an interoperability framework for smart cities and communities, and, for example, work around how to handle personal data. Of course, what is also interesting in a larger context that you may have heard of is that the Commission, with a whole lot of other services, is in the process of trying to create a virtual image of Earth. So the digital twin of Earth, you may hear about it as Destination Earth. And certainly some of that experience will be very, very relevant also for urban digital twins. We also have a lot of work going on artificial intelligence and the trustworthiness of fair AI usage, but also some other examples that may be coming out of, for example, the UK digital twin, the so-called Gemini principles, or the forthcoming era of the spatial web. There's a number of discussion fora out there already, one in the UK and some more international. And we really hope to actually launch a European discussion forum, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Oops. What we are trying to do at EU level is indeed help other cities build their capacity, try to understand what can be replicated, and help other cities replicate and eventually roll out urban digital twins to cities that would like to experiment with it. So we're trying to identify a common definition. What would be a European digital twin? What would be the taxonomy and the kind of categories that we could see, or maturity levels? What would be the most interesting use cases, how to build an ecosystem, who belongs to managing this digital twin within a city ecosystem, what are the shared technical requirements, what could be some generic toolboxes that could be reused, and then discussing data governance, use of AI skills, and eventually build some kind of a roadmap or a path for specific use cases. And for that, what we would like to suggest is that if your city is considering building its digital twin, certainly events like this are very useful to share experience and learn from good use cases. But we'd also welcome you to join a movement that we'll talk about in a minute, the Living in EU movement. If you're not yet familiar with it, try to understand where and why would your city really need a digital twin? What would be the concrete use cases or domains? And then you can look into possible funding mechanisms, either through the new and expanded new MFF or the Recovery and Resilience Facility, but also through a new program called the Digital Europe Program, where we will have some funding as of next year to start building capacity of European cities. So I'm going to look now whether Jonas from the VNG is online.
Yes, I'm here.
There you go, Jonas.
Yep.
So you can take it over from me here.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. And thanks for the story. A little bit of background on living in the EU. So I'm Jonas Onnant. I'm working for the municipalities of associations of municipalities in the Netherlands. And a couple of years ago, we already started working in preparation for this year. Basically, what's happening in Europe with the new programs coming up. In the urban agenda, together with a lot of cities and countries throughout Europe, and also a lot of networks. And one of the, in that process, we saw a lot of things coming together, basically. And one of the big challenges in Europe is how we secure that that the upscaling of digital solutions is done through the European way. So and that's why we started Joint Boost Sustain. And one of the big lessons in developing the urban agenda was the multi-layered approach. So instead of a member state or the European Commission defining the program, the lessons in the last 3 years was really working together from scratch, almost like a bottom-up movement, to see, okay, what are the challenges that we see on a local level, what do we see on a national level, and what do we see on a European level. And through that process and the challenge of upscaling, so how do we move towards solutions that have impact on all over Europe, with respect for the local autonomy and the local dynamics. We started working in a very practical way towards a declaration which was signed in January of this year, Join Boost Sustain in Porto. And so far, this political declaration has over 80 signatories and also a lot of supporting members. So companies, universities, associations, and so on. And the signatories are mayors, regional ministers, or ministers from member states. And the main goal behind it is that we work according to certain principles, as you see underneath. So the citizen-centric approach, a city-led approach at the EU level, because end of the day, the most dynamic, also from a Green Deal perspective, is happening within cities and regions. We want it as a citizen-driven and open innovation ecosystem. So to secure that new innovations are easily to adapt, and that we can anticipate on developments like this, like the digital twin. When using technology, secure the ethical and social responsibilities to make it inclusive, the data ownership, that people control their own data, and so on. Very important key elements why it's so beautiful to live in Europe. And of course, technologies as key enablers. So this whole digital transformation is a cultural change where technology helps to accelerate and change us towards the future. And one of the very, very big challenges, and that's where we, one of the partners in this movement who's really supporting it, is Open and Agile Smart City, so OWASC. How to secure that we avoid vendor lock-ins, to create the right interoperability that it's for cities, and that's very interesting as well for this case. If you want a digital twin, how can you plug and play, easily use it with avoiding vendor lock-ins? So up until that part, these are the principles where we started, and there are a few commitments that we defined where we work together. So what are the conditions to secure that we can create and realize that ambition? Because the overall ambition of living in the EU, which is the brand, basically a value-driven approach, is to reach 300 million Europeans and have impact with a digital solution on that. But you need conditions underneath. So like Andrea already said, what are the financial possibilities and frameworks that you can use as a city to make it happen? There is already a lot of technology available. Earlier mentioned the MIMS, for example. So there is a lot of, but also self-building blocks and so on. And I think with what you'll see later on in the examples in projects like this, that there are already a lot of components also for the digital twins. But how can you reuse them? Of course, legal issues and challenges that you see, so that they're not a showstopper. Education and capacity building. So how do you scale that up, and how do you build the communities? That's something where we in the core help to support through this platform, and the measuring and monitoring. If you can go to the next sheet. What we saw so far is that a lot of people join, but then it's still a process question. And recently, when we started talking about much more icon projects, like a digital twin, we said, let's also look at what are the solutions that a mayor can have. And we use the term icon projects because we defined it as, at this point, you see a lot of point solutions, which we mean, for example, one societal challenge on depth or sustainability, and most of the time, like wine technology applied, so a blockchain solution or something like that. But a digital twin shows, as you all know, that you need multiple technologies, and you can use it for multiple societal challenge, whether it's urban planning, participation with your community, and so on. So we try to help you as cities or as participants to create the platform to connect with each other. And the good part about living in the EU is that it's supported by the European Commission, Committee of the Regions, Eurocities, Open and Agile Smart Cities Network, European Network of Living Labs, and there are more parties joining to secure the next steps. So feel free to look at already the beta version, which will go live in a month. We're already testing it a lot, and last week we had the first calls also to get the different communities on board. So apart from the digital twin, we also look at citizen card, and maybe there's some more solutions. So if you have suggestions, if you want to join, feel free to contact us or to visit the beta version.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea and Jonas. It was a very good and exhaustive overview of digital twins and already challenges and enablers. And thanks, Jonas, for telling us about this initiative. We will also make sure, as a POLIS and so network of cities and regions, that we create some synergies with this, as well as with the capacity building activities of the European Commission, of course. Thanks a lot. And now I would give the floor to Irene, who will present us the lead project. And I remind you, if you want to ask any questions, please write them in the chat and question and answer box so that we can take them at the end of the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Giacomo. So good afternoon, everybody. I am Irene Blasquez, and I'm going to present you the lead project. So I hope it's not working now. Okay. So the rise of on-demand logistics puts serious strain on last-mile delivery systems. In this context, we have three main actors: consumers that require more and more responsive logistics systems that should be able to deliver customized products at low cost; industry that tries to provide instant delivery and personalized products manufacturing; and cities that are confronted with the possible negative consequences of this uberisation of logistics. Urban planners, city authorities, and business stakeholders need a new adapted approach to help them predict possible consequences of market-driven development, to evaluate fast response green strategies, and introduce incremental changes by adapting innovative business models that promote public-private cooperation. In this framework, LITS aims to develop a range of logistic solutions for shared, connected, and low-emission logistic operations, empowered by an adaptive modeling approach and the digital twin models. In the upcoming 3 years, LIT will create digital twins of urban logistic networks in 6 cities: Madrid, The Hague, Lyon, Porto, Budapest, and Oslo, to support experimentation and decision-making with on-demand logistic operations in a public-private urban setting. City logistics solutions will be represented by a set of value cases in areas that address the requirements of the on-demand economy and the pressures caused by the increase of parcel deliveries. Now I'm going to present you Living Lab, each of the 6 Living Labs. So we are starting with Madrid one, which is an important logistic hub affected by air quality and congestion challenges within e-commerce and home delivery services rising up. In this frame, in Madrid Living Lab, we will explore the benefits of using an urban consolidation center to deliver to the city center, the route optimization engine combining vehicles of different fleets, explore alternative and for sure sustainable business models, the public-private cooperation mechanism, the economy efficiency and reliability for courier companies, and exploring potential economic incentives. In the Ag Living Lab, we will be focused on a central innovation district with the aim of connecting shared freight movements around mobility hubs using a digital freight platform. Through this approach, we will explore the potential of integrating crowdsourcing and last-mile urban deliveries. If this crowdsourced delivery is an answer to the growing expectation of customers, different business models, and the possibility of the interconnection of crowdsourcing services. In Porto Living Lab, we will take advantage of the retail stores networks, using them as business-to-business and business-to-customer electric charging docks. Here, we will explore the optimization of delivery routes for electric delivery vehicles, its take-up projections, the development of new business models, the capture of additional e-commerce growth with new services to consumers, and last-mile optimization of these e-commerce. In Lyon, we will test a 3-echelon logistics solution through larger depots residing outside of the restricted traffic zone. This disruptive approach will include the use of existing parking infrastructure as an inner city logistic hub and the combination of autonomous vehicles with small electric delivery vehicles for the last mile distribution. In Lyon, we will explore the development of a decision support framework, the reduction of motorized flows, the implementation of a logistic infrastructure to support innovative solutions, leveraging public policies to cope with socio-environmental objectives, and the promotion of partnership governance. In Budapest, we will provide solutions and quantify the different effects of e-mobility to different transportation scenarios. Here, we will work with the optimal distance for endpoint of the urban consolidation centers, its impact on air quality, comparison of digital twins with the existing microscopic transport model, how to redefine and develop policies, as well as additional ways of promoting e-mobility. And last but not least, in Oslo Living Lab, we will be focused on business to customer and home deliveries. And here we will explore the financial viability of different business models, the interaction between demand and supply design of crowd shipping services, the role for puzzle locals to enhance delivery and pickup flexibility, and the integration of data modeling with the real market data to support digital twin approach. And who are we going to do this? These great 25 partners plus the 5 third parties that we have in the consortium, coming from 11 different countries and located in 3 different continents. On the innovative side, we are oriented to work using the digital twins in the logistic frame that, as it was explained before, is using a digital replica of the real world urban environment and representing the different processes, actors, and their interaction. We are also oriented to support cities introducing new ways of incorporating freight flows in urban mobility planning, leading to a better land use or developing new policy interventions. Also to extend the state-of-the-art around the physical internet vision, and last but not least, to provide citizens and policymakers a clear understanding of the impacts and implications of current and future logistic operations and policies. LEAD will provide, among others, impact on the sustainable urban logistics strategies and plans by formulating a roadmap towards zero-emission city logistics by 2030, consolidating project experiences from living labs, and providing tools for the adaptation of new value cases for zero-emission city logistics. In addition, LEAD Living Labs are designed to set up and test innovative value cases scenarios funded on agent-based models and collaboration between suppliers, shippers, urban and regions policymakers, clients, and citizens. Our digital twins will be used as well to represent the SUMPs of city partners, scale them to urban areas, extend them with new strategies, monitor their impact on the basis of a set of KPIs, and use big data analytics linked to artificial neural networks. And before leaving the floor to the next speaker, let me present you our transferability platform. It will consist of a group of 6 external cities or local authorities that we will be selecting. They will be benefit from a tailored transferability plan, supporting their transfer activities, including capacity building, trainings, technical visits, interactive workshops, and customized feedback. So if you're interested, please get into our website and find out more about the call and how to apply. Thank you all for your attention, and please do not hesitate to follow us through our website and LinkedIn. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Irene, for the introduction of the LEAD project. So yeah, as you have seen, we will be active in 6 cities throughout all Europe, but we also have this opportunity for other cities to get involved in the project with the transferability platform. So we just launched it today, and you can find it on the website. And also we are, as Irene said, we are now in the phase of understanding and also creating synergies with other initiatives in the fields that are quite rare at the beginning, but as Andrea said, they are expected to be much more in the future. So if you have any knowledge about this, also don't hesitate to contact us for this. And now, so we went from the first overview of the European Commission, then through a European funded project with many cities involved, and now we will see how this works in practice with Rotterdam. And so I will give the floor to Roland to explain us how digital twins are integrated into the policy making process of Rotterdam. Thank you.
Thank you, Giacomo. I hope you can see my full screen.
Yes.
Yes, of course, the whole story there's much more to be said than in 10 minutes is possible. So I will mainly focus on why we are doing this and in what results it leads. But going really in depth in that, of course, is not possible. And the first thing is that we in Rotterdam, we really thought long and yet developing a vision on digital twins, in which we think that the digital twin is much more than a new smart tool that we can implement in our smart city. When you think about the city of the future, we really believe that digital twin is an essential part of the digital infrastructure of the digital ecosystem of Rotterdam. And so for us, it starts by thinking about what kind of paradigm shift we see when we talk about what we call city. And that starts with us people, as we are, you could say, unified in what we call the social reality, which it's all about our people, how we communicate, how we interact with each other, how we behave ourselves. And that's something that we always do in a physical context. So you could say that the constant dynamic between the social reality of us people in the physical context of where we live is a two-way influence. We are constantly shaping the physical surroundings around us, and the other way around, the physical surroundings is influencing the way we feel, the way we behave, the way we act. We talk differently when we're at the marketplace than when we're at the church. So that's something else. And in that context, you could say that this is the traditional city. This is how we've built cities for centuries. The constant dynamics between us people and our physical surroundings. But there's something new coming on, and that's what we call the digital reality. And that is much more than just some tools that we can use in our traditional framework of the city. It's a completely new reality that to growing extent is influencing our physical and social city, and we don't have the means from a traditional point of view to deal with that at this moment. So, and where you see the dynamics rising is most on the digital social dimension. With the coming of internet and smartphones and social media, you see an enormous growing intensity on that dimension. And especially with the platform economy arising, you should see the influence through that digital social reality on the traditional physical city. So think about Airbnb as a platform. So we're living in a reality that at any given time, some smart kids in a garage box somewhere can develop a computer program, put it on the internet, and influence cities worldwide in a physical sense. So they can really disrupt physically cities just by putting a program there. So that's something to think about. Okay, what kind of change does that bring to what the city is of the future? Now, and when we look at the digital physical dimension, you see that there's not that much really developed. There's a lot going on. For example, in Rotterdam, we made an inventory and we came up with a list with 350 smart city initiatives. And that was already 2 years ago, so that sounds quite good. But at the same time, it also gave us the feeling we can do 1,000 smart city projects, but it won't make us a smart city. So that's something else. And what's the difference there? We really believe that has to do with what we call the connection. And that's where, in our opinion, the Open Urban Platform comes in with that 3D digital twin. That can really create that, connection on the digital physical dimension and create all new kinds of possibilities towards the future. And of course, from there, we also want to influence in the direction of the more, in the social reality, combine it with all kinds of social questions. And you could say, the better that in the end we will succeed in combining those three realities and let them work together and facilitate and stimulate each other, the better we succeed in that, the smarter a city will be. So for us, the smart city is really about connecting those three realities and let them work together in some sense. And from there, when you really connect those three realities, in Rotterdam, that's the vision for the future, then we're talking what we call a digital urban community. So where a digital twin is mainly focusing on the digital physical reality, the digital urban community is about connecting all the three realities. And in the Rotterdam program, that will be the case, the vision after 2022. So up until 2022, we're mainly focusing on that digital twin development. Now, and in that digital twin development, we choose the perspective of what we call the ecosystem. So we're not taking the perspective of the municipality, but we take the perspective of the ecosystem. And that also brings up the question, okay, what kind of role do we have as a municipality have in it? So that governance question is also very relevant. And in the end, we think that we're not only part of our own ecosystem, but you're also part of all kinds of other ecosystems. So it's also necessary to think about, okay, how do we make the ecosystem up and running, but also how are we still going to be interoperable with other ecosystems? Now, what will the Open Urban Platform look like? A bit about the design principles. In essence, we see three layers here. We see the data sources layer on the bottom, and we see the urban platform in the middle as a connector for the purpose of all kinds of applications for the benefit for all kinds of users. And when you make the comparison with Lego, you could say we have all kinds of data sources. On the left, you see data sources of companies, in the middle of knowledge institutes, and on the right of municipalities. And you could compare all those kind of blocks. They have all different kind of shapes, different kind of colors, etc., etc. But from those blocks, I have to go the other way around. You can have a platform on which all those different blocks can lead up until all kinds of different information buildings, you could say. And the essence in that is, okay, that sounds very nice, but how do we do that? How do we make that interoperable, that all those data can flow through the platform in all those different kinds of directions? And there we make the comparison, of course, with Lego, because Lego gives you all kinds of shapes and forms of colors, etc. There's a broad variety, but one thing is very strict, and that's the measurement of the dots, how those blocks can connect. Now, and that comparison you could see as what we call the pivotal points of interoperability. The connection, the interconnections between all the different functionalities that makes it possible that data can flow based on open data standards. Now, and as Andrea already mentioned in an earlier in her presentation, we also use the MIM principles in that. We extracted them from the Espresso project that we were part of. And the first MIM, you could say, are our PPIs, our pivotal points of interoperability. the open data standards that we need to make all those different connections that are needed. And further, you see the other MIMs that we at this moment have found out for ourselves as functionality blocks, you could say, and together making up the platform. And as last, of course, you see here the 3D digital twin. We see the digital twin as a part of the platform because it gives direction towards the platform is going to be. It gives meaning to the platform. And when you talk about the digital twin, what is for us the digital twin? It's based on two pillars, you could say. And one pillar is what we call the smart 3D model of the city. And what makes the model smart? This is what you're now seeing. This is what makes it smart. And we have, at Rotterdam, we have a 3D model of the whole city, and everything in it is are objects. Every building, every tree, every bench, garbage can, everything is an object, and you can attach data to it. And because you can attach data to it, that makes the model smart. And you can also use the geometry of the model. And when you combine that 3D surroundings, which describes the physical state of the city, to real-time data, which says something about the functioning of the city. So you have a garbage can in your 3D model, and you put a sensor in it that says how full it is, or you have a lamppost, and you have and you know if it's burning or not, or if you have a street and how many cars are driving through. When you bring those two things together, then you get what we call a 3D digital twin of the city. The 3D digital twin offers you a common picture of the current reality of the city, described in terms of data. And of course, very interesting, you're not only having the current state, but when you also save your digital twin, you get also all kinds of interesting historical patterns about how things have developed in the past. Now, and on the last slide, the digital twin itself, in our opinion, only describes current reality as is. That's it, and that's already very difficult enough. But when you have it, it's the basis for all kinds of smart tools that you can develop on top of that digital twin. And here on the sheet, you see all kinds of tools that we're already developing. And some of them already have proof of concept put in place there that are using the digital twin as a basis. So we are in the spatial planning department for smarter tools for public citizens' participation in urban planning processes. We have for energy transitions, information about safety, all kinds of tools that we use, and we believe that in the end, the digital twin offers you an endless amount of possibilities for developing smart tools. And in our opinion, the main force of the digital twin lies in the fact that you share a common picture of reality. And that's where I want to finish.
Thank you, Roland. Thanks for this very clear overview of your process in Rotterdam, and indeed how to then build upon the digital twins to create smart tools for different applications. Thanks a lot. Now I would like to take some questions and also involve you in some discussion. I see that Andrea already replied to a question in the chat, but maybe Andrea, you can further elaborate briefly on the question by Thomas Ambra from VUB.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very relevant question and something that will be relevant for all common data spaces. I mentioned that the data strategy foresees the creation of a number of sectoral data spaces. I think for you very relevant is the mobility data space, but we will have one related to even agriculture, where we could see, for example, the link to communities. There will be one for the Green Deal data space. And just as a side note, so for the Green Deal data space, because I saw discussion around Destination Earth, the two immediate contributors will be the Destination Earth, so the visualization of Earth, as well as this local data ecosystem for smart communities. So there will be a number of these data spaces, and certainly personal data management will be kind of horizontal to all. And at the same time, we're also developing a European cloud infrastructure, federated cloud infrastructure that would help all these data spaces to manage and federate their data and eventually create a common European single data market, so to speak. So indeed, we are very much working together with GaiaX that has already worked on the kind of governance structure that would be needed both for the data spaces as well as this cloud federated cloud infrastructure, but also identifying used existing good practices in managing personal data, of course, in line with the GDPR. Many of you will know My Data or other initiatives. What we, for example, have been following with the Open and Agile Smart Cities is their approach to create a minimum interoperability mechanism also for personal data management. And they're working on one based on experience from My Data, but then to other initiatives, and trying to develop how this could be used in a smart city context. So there are a number of initiatives. We recognize that this is an overarching horizontal aspect to all the data spaces, and indeed must be addressed and perhaps could be addressed in a generic approach. And for that, please keep an eye on before the end of the month of a new legislative document from DG Connect, from the Commission, on the Data Governance Act, which will be talking also about a number of data governance issues related to the data spaces and also about personal data management.
Thank you, Andrea. And yeah, you mentioned the governance dimension, and also Roland just did it, which is quite crucial, because now we are talking about a tool that is something, a technology that facilitates a governance process, but the focus is still on the governance dimension. So also, Roland, I would like to ask you how you make sure that this decision-making process is really uptaken within the municipality, and you work across the sectors, and also including the stakeholders that need to provide the data that are essential for the development of this model.
Yeah, that's one of the most difficult questions of all, of course.
That's why I asked.
As one of my colleagues always said, it's a 25% technique and a 75% culture and organizational change. And that's what's here going on also. So the 25% technique is very challenging, but that's something that we will work out. So the real challenge is create the cultural and organizational change that is needed. And then you have, in my opinion, at least two dimensions, maybe much more, but at least two. That's the internal dimension and the external dimension. So we have our network and our stakeholders in the ecosystem, where we have all kind of parties involved. Three I already see. So the parties in our own ecosystem that needs to be activated. Then we have the whole internal organization that all kinds of changes need to make changes. And then we have, of course, we don't live in our isolated world. So we have also all kind of cross connections with other big cities in Holland, with the VNG, with Europe, with all kind of other organizations in which we want to develop not our own ecosystem, but our ecosystem connected to the rest of the world. So you have three kind of stakeholder levels where you need to act, I think. Starting at the ladder, the cooperation with G4, the four largest cities in Holland, with the VNG, with Europe, with projects. I think that we try to be part of everything that is interesting for us. For example, together with a number of cities and other parties, we created the Dutch guidelines for developing open urban platforms by the NEN, the Dutch Standardization Institute. as a way of creating with them together a sort of common ground. Common ground is also developing philosophy of the VNG, so that connects really good. We are cooperating with the Hague and the province of South Holland to create what we call a common data landscape. So there we try to connect our ecosystem to others. The second, mobilizing the partners within the ecosystem. We tried several things. For example, recently in Rotterdam, there was an initiative in which more than 30 companies of the MKB, the small and medium enterprises, the SMEs, in which more than 30 SMEs are combined. And now with them together, that's called a call to action. So we have put out a call to action to that group of more than 30 SMEs. If we are developing this, is this something that you will that you have trust in and that you will use, and how can we develop together this that it's for you usable? So we really try to connect to that part, for example. So it's really thinking about some kind of network approach, co-creation, and do it together with partners in the city. There, really try to connect them to what you're doing. And internally, up until this point, internally, we have the most struggles, the most barriers. They're not in the network with external partners, but they are within my own organization. Because, at the end, we are a government. And we are for quite how do you put it there? The guts for change is not always there. So it's a complete another way of thinking. In our organization, everything is pointed at creating smart, defined projects with KPIs and a very big with big ambitions and very well thought at front, but at the end, too big, too slow, and it really misses reality in there somewhere. So it's too, I don't know how to put it in English in that words as I could put it. No,
but it's clear. It's clear. The concept is it's quite clear.
So,
but, thanks for being clear on this, and that's also brings to the last question, maybe to Irene, on because the lead project is focusing on urban logistics, and so to create new solutions for shared, connected, and low emission logistics. And so I would like to ask you why you focused on this subject, and what type of knowledge gap do you expect LEAD to fill, both for Madrid and in general, and how you, I mean, Roland said this is very important to frame this into a co-creation environment with local stakeholders and also small and medium enterprises, and LEAD set up 6 living labs at city level. So how is this organized?
Well, actually, on the first hand, actually, we decided to go to for urban logistics because this is a prominent and growth sector. Actually, I mean, the changing consumer habits and their expectations for being delivered the same or the next day put an enormous pressure on last mile logistic networks and for sure on supply chains. So we decided that it was a challenging and brand new topic to be covered, especially with this digital twin approach that we have been discussing during the whole session. So actually we aim to contribute to balance the on-demand economies and the low emission logistic operation, and try to provide practical tools and solutions to support these last mile communities to progress to this zero emissions level by 2030. So actually, and yes, and the co-creation and the involvement that we have with local stakeholders, we have been decided to approach this area or this task through the communities of practice that we have called. Actually, we have developed one per living lab and develop them under the philosophy of not only about giving, it's also about getting back. So actually the members of these communities of practice will help to create more efficient and zero emissions light mile deliveries, to gain insights in the needs of different urban stakeholder groups, to have access to these innovative and technology tools, and for sure getting visibility within these solutions through our community communication channels. So briefly, because I know that we are running out of time, I think this is more or less.
Thanks,
I hope I've answered the questions.
Yeah. And of course, more information will be available later when these communities will be also more active, and we will probably disseminate. I just have one more question that I see from Giuseppe Lupino, especially for Rotterdam, I guess. But he says that there's an amazing quantity of data about infrastructures and equipment regarding traffic planning, sustainable urban mobility plans or logistics plans. Do you see an application also in terms of real-time planning for traffic flow? Or do you see the digital twin as complementary to traffic planning? And then I see, I think you can give a short answer, and then we can also put you in contact later, Giuseppe, for this topic.
Yes, if you want to know more, of course, you can always contact me. But as a short answer, I see the digital twin as a basic tool in which you visualize current traffic flows. And that is the basis for all kind of traffic policy that you want to build on top of that. If you, for example, we are working on an application for the fire department, in which they can see current traffic flows and where the bridge is open or not, and what the next route could be, an alternative route then there. That's an application that you build on top of the current status of your data. So that's how I see the combinations. The digital twin is just describing what is, also in terms of traffic flows, and how you can use that in smart tools to predict towards the future or to give alternative routes or whatever. That's where the digital, the application for mobility comes in.
Okay, thank you, Roland. Thanks to all the speakers. It was very interesting. And now I just remind you about the next webinar, which is on Thursday, Managing Uncertainty when Dealing with the Future of Urban Mobility, organized by the GECO and Momentum projects, and also, of course, the POLIS conference that will take place on the 30th of November until the 3rd of December. It will be virtual, unfortunately, this year, but it will be anyway very interesting. And so thanks again to Andrea, Jonas, Irene, and Roland for these very interesting presentations. We will make all this material available for you, and we are at disposal for any further information on LEAD and also on the other initiatives, and we will create as many synergies as possible. So thanks a lot for your participation, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Giacomo.